Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, brought to you by us, the folks, or me, the folk, at Nerd Caliber. I am running the game solo tonight. Everybody's got a bunch of stuff to do. I'm not entirely sure it's all related to taxes, but, it might be. Actually, that would only apply to people here in Massachusetts and Maine. Everybody else, yesterday was your day. We have weird holidays here. I'll give you that. Anyway. I am solo. I am Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber. I'm also the photographer known as First Person Shooter on the internet, on the Facebooks and so on, and on Twitter and some other places. I'm a burly adopter, mostly for my tech journalism writing and so on. Since I am running solo, I do want to get a couple of promo stuff, a few promo things out of the way. The first one is this weekend we will have a pretty solid presence at Anime Boston here in, Boston, kind of in the name. We will be promoting our own event, the Cosplay and Photography Expo. We'll have a table in what they call the Con Row. It's the promotional table row. It's in the hallway that runs right along the dealer rooms, so you can't miss it. All the other upcoming cons that want to be there to promote their event will have their tables there. So stop by and see us, check it out. Our next Cosplay and Photography Expo is 2020. We just announced last Friday, July 18th and 19th, 2020, Holiday Inn, Mansfield, Massachusetts. It's 2+ something miles right off the commuter rail stop in Mansfield, so easy to get to in public transportation. The facility is gorgeous. It's really cool. And stay tuned for more announcements about panelists, about everything, about pricing. We haven't set up the pricing yet, but I can tell you they will start at the same price as last year. Anyway, check it out. Check out the website if you're not going to be at Anime Boston. It's cape.nerdcaliber.com, or check out our table if you are going to be at the Anime Boston, and we can get photos. Because I will set up like I usually do, an umbrella. You shoot against that nice red wall. Looks really cool. The other thing is, coming up in May, we have our Cape Cod Cosplay Photo Shoot Week. And I realized that giving it that name, while it's accurate, just so that I could get the CCCP acronym, was probably pretty stupid on my part. But anyway, come to CCCP, not the former Soviet Union, the Cape Cod Cosplay Photo Shoot Week, South Wellfleet, the South Fleet Motor Inn, and I will be there from the weekend of May 11th and 12th. Number one Otaku, hello. Gamer Guy, Pennington, hello. How you doing? May 11th and 12th through the following weekend, ending on Sunday, May 19th. And the idea is we gather photographers and cosplayers to the beautiful Cape Cod with gorgeous beaches and really interesting scenery. There's a fantastic white cedar swamp right next to the facility. There's a place that looks just like the Shire. There's abandoned military housing for like zombie shoots, and it's fantastic. All within tops a 15-20 minute drive. Nafisa, hello. So you're going to be there Saturday in Rosemont, though. So you're not going to be at the event, but you'll be in a town called Rosemont, or you'll be in a cosplay called Rosemont. I'm not really sure. Otaku, let me know. Yes, so the idea is that we put together cosplayers and photographers and help them find places to shoot what it is that they want to shoot. At a time when the beauty of Cape Cod is not swarming with tourists. So that's the big key. South Fleet Motor Inn offers us a fantastic rate for anybody who wants to stay over for a day or two. Or the whole week if you want, like I will, but... And what else do we have coming up in May? We'll have people at MegaCon down in Orlando. So check that out. If you're down there, get photos. I think that's pretty much it for the promo stuff. So I'm going to jump right into the newsy news. you will be in Illinois in a town. Okay, cool. Enjoy Rosemont. I'm not sure how that has anything to do with our cosplay and photography photo shoot week, but let's hope you get some photos or take some photos while you're there. So our first story is, he says, as he tries to figure out, there we go. You might be wondering what that image is that just popped up in front of you, and it's probably pretty hard to tell because it's just a picture of somebody singing into a microphone inside a screen of some sort. Twitch has announced that they are launching Twitch Sings, which is a karaoke game that they are doing in conjunction with Harmonix that will start right out of the gate with about 2,000 songs in its roster. I think probably what you're looking at here is an attempt to try to bite into a little bit of the success of TikTok. And I don't think that's a bad thing. TikTok is obviously becoming very popular. So if Twitch can get a chunk of that, they already have people who sort of do karaoke on their Twitch streams anyway. Whether, just to present it. This gives them a way to gamify that by having an actual karaoke game. The fact that it's made by the folks at Harmonix, nice little company right from this area here in Greater Boston that made, you might have remember, Rock Band, Dance Central, so they know music games really, really well. So we'll see what that looks like. Launch date on that is well, apparently they announced that this game was coming last year, but this is the first I've heard of it. Maybe the news here is the announcement that Harmonix is going to be the one working. Launch is now. It is now available to download on PC. So go out there, folks, and get your karaoke on if that's what you like to get on. Not much of a karaoke fan myself, but then again, that's because I'm pretty inconsistent at being able to carry a tune. Moving on to our next piece of news. And as you gather, since I'm solo, this is probably going to go by pretty quickly. We'll be done here within, I would say, a half an hour. Moving around like that, I lose my chat window. Maybe I'll bring my chat window back over to where it's supposed to be. Because otherwise I can't see you guys chat. I think I'll do that. I'm going to reconnect my chat window. Give me a second here. There we go. Cookie Queen, hello, hello. Thanks for all the cookies. So, the next piece of news coming up here is, those are two covers for an upcoming comic book called Space Bandits. It's not just a comic book. It is a Netflix series, and it is one of the joint productions that's being done since Netflix paid Mark Millar a bucket load of cash to make both TV shows and movies, both TV shows and movies and comic books under a Netflix imprint. So Space Bandits will be a TV show. It will also be a comic book. The news here, which is completely new to me, is that Space Bandits is going to happen. The news apparently is that Howie Chaykin has been recruited. He is the artist on the image to your right, the one with the moon in the background. Howie Chaykin has been recruited to be the first guest special cover artist of what I guess is supposed to be 4 legendary artists. But to me, the news is that they're actually doing this sci-fi TV series, which Millar himself describes as, quote, a female Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid set in space with a massive and exciting cast of characters. Image is actually going to be the publisher. Image Comics. So even though it's a Netflix property, it apparently will be published under Image imprint. And the main characters are Thana Cole and Cody Blue. They're described as, quote, outlaw queens who lead notorious heist gangs that hop from starship to starship, taking whatever they want, whenever they want. But when they are betrayed by mutineers and their own crews, the two have to unite in their thirst for vengeance. He describes it as, very exciting. I get the impression that it's a little bit of Cowboy Bebop meets a lot of The Fifth Element. If you look at the way the artwork is done and the general overall style of it, and then you consider Mark Millar's other work, Kick-Ass, if he brings anything like the irreverence of Kick-Ass to this sort of space opera sci-fi theme, it's got to be pretty interesting. There's almost no information in here about exactly when the series will hit Netflix. The comic book will be July 3rd. And then, of course, they're trying to hype this news that there will be these Legend cover editions, and the first one is Howard Chaykin, who I'm a huge fan of, by the way. I loved American Flag. Almost anything Chaykin's done. The Dominic Fortune books are really cool. If you have never checked those out, if you like sort of Black Dahlia type, old Hollywood, 1930s Hollywood set stories, but with big adventure, sort of like The Rocketeer, except without a rocket pack. Dominic Fortune is a really, really cool series. But yeah, so I don't know when the TV series will come out. We'll have to check out that when it happens, or when we get any more news about it, certainly. Our next bit of news is, this is actually a new game that is developed specifically for the International Paralympics Committee, and it is the official game of the Paralympics event, and it's called the Pegasus Dream Tour. The real big news and why this is on the docket this week, as opposed to just, it's a new game, is that it is being developed by JP Games, which is the new independent studio that was established by Hajime Tabata, who was the director of Final Fantasy 15. This is going to be the first game that this studio puts out, and I think that's a really cool way to launch your studio, is to do something that is giving back to the community, in addition to ideally creating a really cool game. It's going to be I guess a fairly standard Japanese RPG, JRPG, but it's directed by the guy who did Final Fantasy 15. So you got to figure it's going to be a pretty solid game from story, from gameplay, and so on. So kudos to JP Games and Tabata for doing something like this. I think it's really, really good news. Our next topic is that gentleman right there. Let's see, what are we going to call him? Bruce Mormont Isaacs. That, in fact, is a picture of Ian Glenn as Dr. Alexander Isaacs from the Resident Evil series. He is, of course, also Jorah Mormont on Game of Thrones. He is going to be your Bruce Wayne on the DCU Titans series. I think that's a great casting, particularly if you've seen Titans and you've seen how they describe and ultimately introduce the character of Batman. Having somebody that can play a deeply flawed and conflicted character, as Ian Glenn has done in almost everything he's done, I think is a good choice. Kind of like to see him jack up a little bit, but then again, this Bruce Wayne is older. There's no question about that. They've made that clear in the Titans series that this is closer to the original Dark Knight comic book Bruce Wayne as far as age, as opposed to Christian Bale or whoever. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if this gives us any information about when next fall, generically, it doesn't say when. I believe the last one started sometime in October, so I'm hoping that this next season of Titans will also hit in October at some point. So, fingers crossed for Ian Glenn giving us a really good performance in what has been a pretty good series, if you can get by all of the swearing and ultraviolence. I don't mind it. It's a little HBO-ish, but there are a lot of people who don't think that's appropriate for the Batman universe. Can't argue with them. All right, we are now moving into what I call the Disneyfication segment. And in case you didn't see any of this stuff, Disney had its big investor conference meeting last week, just a couple of days in advance of the start of Star Wars Celebration. And of course, Disney now owns Star Wars, so that was all Disney stuff too. And between the Disney investor meeting and Star Wars Celebration, boy, did we get a lot of news. Most of it focused on Disney, but there's some other stuff, and we'll start with. So that is the official screen that went up at the investors conference, and that is what Disney Plus is hyping right out of the gate. It is a Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic content platform to start with, which I think is cool. I think the fact that they are promoting all of their divisions, or most of their divisions, on this Disney Plus, that there will be old and new content from every one of these on Disney Plus, I think is fantastic. The big news was that there's a launch date and a price. The launch date is November 12th. So coming up this fall, you will be able to start watching some of these things on Disney Plus, and the price is $6.99 a month, at least to start with. They've made no indication that the price is going up, but who knows? So for $7 a month, you get to see, in the launch titles will be every single Star Wars movie made up to that point. And Episode 9, which we'll get to, won't be available because it won't be released until a month after that. But you will get all of the previous episodes of all the Star Wars movies. You will get the Mandalorian series, which we'll get to. And I'm not sure what else in the Marvel canon or Pixar. They weren't particularly clear about that. Or they might have been clear to their investors, but that didn't get out to any of the news that I saw. So November 12th, $7 a month. I'll take that. I might decide to drop a particular package that I've got, but Game of Thrones will be over by then, so I'll probably drop HBO until something else comes up, until one of the Game of Thrones prequels comes up or something that catches my attention. That is one of the advantages of the cord cutting, is that you can just pick these things up and drop them as you want. So speaking of, the biggest touted thing at Star Wars Celebration was probably The Mandalorian. The new series, it will be a launch series, so November 12th, the first episode will be right there. You'll get to watch it. Emily, hi, and Menace, hi. Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying, so my apologies. I'm not exactly multilingual here in my old New England self. Although I should. I did take German in college. Of course, that's not German that you're speaking, but I might be able to squeak by some German. That's about it. Anyway, the show that you're looking at right there, or the image you're looking at, is from they showed quite a teaser to the people at the Celebration panel at Star Wars Celebration of the series Mandalorian. That is, of course, Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. The article that I was reading on Deadline notes that apparently there are a lot of cantinas that he walks into in a very Western gunfighter style. So lots of cantinas in The Mandalorian. But they showed all kinds of the secondary characters as well, including Werner Herzog. And we've talked about that before. Emily, I'm not really sure. Are you asking what my favorite anime is, or are you saying that The Mandalorian is your favorite anime? Because it's a live-action series, so that wouldn't make much sense. They showed, like I said, a lot of the footage, which some of the teaser roll that has some of the cast members talking about The Mandalorian is up online, and if you're interested in that, please go track it down on YouTube before they take it down, because I guarantee Disney's going to take it down. But the actual long piece that shows scenes from the show itself isn't up that I can find. which would make sense. Disney probably has a pretty tight control on that. But it looks fantastic. The style is wonderful. That sort of behind the scenes teaser roll also short interviews, but interviews a bunch of the directors that are already set up, including Taika Waititi. So the fact that they've got directors like this doing episodes, like individual episode directors that have directed big movies, is fantastic. Emily, that was a two-part question, so it can't be answered with yes. It's one or the other. So I'm guessing you want to know my favorite anime, but I'll wait till you confirm that one more time. If I can even say that, because there's so many really good ones. So, yeah, Mandalorian, November 12th, when it launches. Go check it out. Pedro Pascal says he's channeling Clint Eastwood like you wouldn't believe. And I'm very much there for that. Very much looking forward to that. One of the other pieces of awesome news came out. Now, we've talked about the fact that they are doing a Rogue One series. We've talked about the fact that the Rogue One series will have Diego Luna. It's about Cassian Andor's life as a rebel or a resistance, a rebel alliance spy. Way before, obviously, the movie Rogue One. If you haven't seen it, no spoilers. But the news is that Alan Tudyk is coming back to be the voice of K2SO, and that's K2SO, of course, up on the screen there. The sassiest android in the universe, puts C-3PO to shame with the amount of sass he delivers. It's absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen Rogue One, go watch it. It's the best Star Wars movie ever made. That's my opinion, of course, but it's shared by a lot of people. But Alan Tudyk is joining Diego Luna to reprise. They're both reprising their roles from the movie in the series Rogue One, or series based on Rogue One. I don't think that's the actual title at the moment. So our next bit of news, and this is really interesting. So that is, of course, Maya Rudolph from the brilliant Idiocracy. Maya Rudolph is going to be doing the voice of a droid in an upcoming VR series called Vader Immortal. And you play, let's see how I'm going to describe this. You play a character as a smuggler who is apparently working for Vader, and Vader, using James Earl Jones's voice, basically keeps yelling at you if you do things wrong. And Maya Rudolph is playing the voice of ZOE3, or Zoe3. I'm not sure how they decide they're going to pronounce that. I'm not big on VR games, mainly because I don't have a VR headset. But it sounds really interesting. And the fact that they got, again, James Earl Jones to do more Vader voice stuff, and Maya Rudolph to do a voice for a VR game. And I'm sure VR games don't sell nearly as well as standard games. And boy, do we have some interesting game-related news. Jeffrey, hey, how you doing? Coming up. The fact that they got these people is, again, an indication that Disney is just throwing money at this franchise and at the Disney Plus streaming service. They want to win that war between Disney Plus and Hulu, which now they own almost all of. This isn't on the topic, but so Hulu just bought out the AT&T Time Warner or Warner Media part of Hulu. So it's now just Disney and one other owner, and I can't remember who that is. And Disney currently owns 60%. The other owner owns 30%. So that the 10% that Hulu bought is, in theory, going to be divided up along that ratio, which means Disney would wind up with like 66% or 2/3 of the entire ownership. They still already have the majority ownership, so they can do whatever they want realistically. So between Disney Plus and Hulu, they have they will have two of the biggest streaming services as far as content goes out there. They want to own this sector. Speaking of owning the sector, this news just dropped. Before I get to this, so Emily, that's really, really hard to say. I think, other than Ghibli films, and I don't necessarily want to say a film as my favorite anime, because I still think of anime as a series. The somewhat older series Last Exile, the original, not the sequel, may be my favorite anime series of all time. I love the science fiction element of it, the steampunk element, the fantastic story-driven, just really well done. I'm a huge, huge fan. And then there are all sorts of others. Steins Gate, the original Steins Gate, is just genius. But anyway, moving on to our last topic. Jeffrey, I was answering a question on the chat about my favorite anime, but what we're talking about here are pieces of nerd news that released in the last week between our last show and this show. And right now we're in a segment that's an awful lot about what Disney announced about its Disney Plus streaming service and various Star Wars related things that came out of Star Wars Celebration. And in fact, we're about to get to our very last topic, which is that. That is a image from the game Knights of the Old Republic. And Kathleen Kennedy of Disney, or of Lucasfilm, confirmed that there is a Knights of the Old Republic movie in development right now. She confirmed an awful lot of other things that people have talked about that might have been on the back burner, like the Game of Thrones guys David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are working on a new trilogy. Rian Johnson is also still working on his own new trilogy. So a lot of people had talked about with, I don't know, I guess the backlash against The Last Jedi that and the apparent lack of success of Solo, that some of these other movies would just go away. Kennedy has said that that is not the case. And she is the one who knows and has the authority to say that. So when she says it's happening, it's happening. We don't know almost anything about what this Knights of the Old Republic movie is going to be about, or who's working on it, who's doing it. But it is happening. And that is wonderful, wonderful news. I can't wait to see more information about this, to figure out exactly where they're going to go with it. It gives them so much more of a world to play with now by going all the way back to the Old Republic. If they mine the lore that was already created, both in the game and for books that were written around that, and Disney has made it clear that some books are in fact canon. They've created a list of canon from the books that have been published prior to them buying Lucasfilm. And of course anything afterwards is canon. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking for, some people pulling down old school battle cruisers right out of orbit with force powers and smashing them into planets. I want that, that power. I'd be very excited to see that level of force use in a movie coming out of the Star Wars franchise. As much as I would like to see, I'm still more of a fan of the more realistic science fiction type stories, like Rogue One. I think Rogue One is a war movie. It's a very almost hard science war movie with almost nothing about the Force in it, except obviously Chiram Iwit. What's his name? Anyway, the blind Force monk. But even if they didn't hammer that too much, the rest of it was pretty much a straight-up war/spy rebellion movie, and that's what made it, in my mind, the best movie. But anyway, so that is it for our show, folks. We snuck this sucker in a scant 30 minutes. I didn't even have any time to, toast my little 12-year-old Macallan here. Here's to everybody. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Jeffrey, bye, and everybody else, goodbye. We will see you next week. If we don't see you out at Anime Boston, which is what we're really hoping to see as many people as we can there, get your photos and talk up the Cosplay and Photography Expo 2020, cape.nerdcaliber.com. Go check it out. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.